Get some people starting to come in. Welcome, everybody. As you're coming in, please feel free to let us know where you're from. Go ahead and pop that into the chat. Don't be shy. You guys can let us know where you're coming from, where you're visiting from. We've got Baltimore in the house. Welcome.
All right.
Albany, New York's here. Everybody else must, oh, let's see. Originally from Tokyo.
Oh, good.
Now in Virginia, welcome. San Antonio's in the house, Chicago. A few people from all over, it's kind of nice. We're gonna give it just another minute to let people jump in and then we will get started. Welcome, Pennsylvania, Sunbury. Michigan. Got another Michigander in the house.
I see, Maria, you also chose the Japanese cherry blossoms for the background.
Yes. I have clients who are supposed to be there for that this year.
Oh, sorry.
Exactly. Yeah, what are you going to do? All right, let me go ahead and get us started. And go ahead and share my screen. Well, welcome everybody. I saw a lot of familiar faces pop up in the chat. So thank you for joining us again. For those of you who have gone on our virtual vacations with us before, to those of you who are new, welcome. We hope you enjoy the trip today to Japan. Just to give you a little bit of background on who we are and how we got started, I'm Maria Stephanopoulos and I'm in the greater Tampa area with Ingenious Travel. Susan Schaefer with Ships and Trips Travels from Middle Tennessee is not with us this evening, but I do have Candace Stearns of Stay Balanced Travel here from Detroit with us. And Barbara Oliver and Gail Sherman from All Together Now Travel and Wine Lovers Travel aren't with us tonight either from Southern California. They're not able to be here tonight. But the five of us got together back in April. Everything was getting pretty crazy, or the starting of what we now know is the craziness with the coronavirus. And when you turned on the TV, that is all you heard about. And it, negative after negative after negative, staring at your own four walls. And we're like, well, what can we do to make a change with that? And we decided to launch Take a Virtual Vacation so that we could allow people an escape for about an hour a week, just to start thinking about other things besides what's going on in our own backyard. And where you can find us, I know some of you found us through Eventbrite, which is pretty cool, but we hope you're going to join us on our Facebook page, our Facebook group, Take a Virtual Vacation. There we'll have listings of upcoming virtual vacations along with the recorded sessions from past virtual vacations. You can also find them on our YouTube channel. And for those of you in the greater Tampa Bay, Middle Tennessee, or Detroit area, we've also started a meetup group, Eat, Drink, Travel. We hope that once, I know here in Florida, the governor has just lifted all restrictions. We are now able to meet in groups, going to the bars and restaurants. So we'll start planning some of those in-person events very quickly. And for the rest of you, as soon as the other states get a handle with what's going on, then you'll be able to meet more in person. Candace, I believe you have a second event coming up in Detroit.
I do. I'm polling the meetup group as we speak for what day of the week's going to work good, and we threw out the potential of meeting at some cider mills, because obviously in Detroit area we have all the beautiful colors of the fall, and apples and pumpkins are in season. So we're going to try and do maybe some cider mills, some tastings, and those kinds of things. So I'm just working with the meetup group. And if you are from the meetup group, please take the poll. I sent out an email requesting answers to the poll. So.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm a little jealous. Now that I'm down in Florida, I don't have that same experience. I miss the Franklin Cider Mill especially. Oh, good times. But with that being said, Stop sharing my screen. I'm going to introduce John McMillan, who's visiting with us today from Inside Japan Tours, who's going to give us our beginner's guide to Japan. Welcome, John, and go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks, Candice. Like I got to say, for starters, I'm jealous too of these cider mills. I had a pumpkin cider last night, and this is a verge away from the norm for me. I'm usually a beer guy, but it was amazing. So
our cider mills, a lot of them are also breweries. So they do hard ciders and brew houses and all micro and all of that. So that's going to be a fun thing for us to do.
super sweet. Yeah, I live in Colorado, so I am spoiled for choice here, but not in the cider realm. So excellent. Well, thanks for the introduction. My name is John, and I will go ahead and get up our Japan virtual vacation for you guys. And I when I have my screen up, I won't be able to watch the Q&A, but we'll come back to that towards the end of the presentation.
Yeah, definitely. Put your questions in the chat and we'll go ahead and, like John said, answer them at the end. I'm also going to put in the chat a copy of the information of where you can find us, whether online or if you're in one of the areas we have a meetup.
Awesome, thanks. Okay. Have a little bit of a preview there of the first slide. It has an animation, so but you got the sneak peek. So yes, thank you for joining me on an introduction to Japan. Just to kind of kick things off, you can't quite see the picture of me there, it's behind our pictures, but I lived in Japan for 7 years. It is my second home for sure. I like to joke that I'm half Japanese. Brings up an interesting conversation, but having lived there so long, I absorbed a lot of the culture and a lot of the kind of mindset and thinking while I was there. You can see the different places that I lived. You may have heard of one or more of those, maybe not, but after the presentation today, you'll be a little bit more familiar with the country at least. And just to give some context to that picture, that is me sitting across Lake Kawaguchi at the glamping resort Hoshinoya Fuji, looking of course at the beautiful Mount Fuji, which my colleagues here have highlighted in their photos as well. I like to start off with a little video here. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. You've been a great crowd. Just kidding. We'll talk about Japan. So yeah, why would we want to go to Japan? This is maybe a silly question, but we'll dig into a few more of the details. So you may have thought about, unique Japanese cultural assets like seeing sumo wrestling or having an audience with a geisha, that sort of thing. And these are aspects that draw a lot of people to Japan, of course. However, there is a lot more to the country and a lot more going on. Now, I'll let you look at this slide for just a second, but I will bet your attention was probably drawn to that toilet in the lower left-hand corner. I have to say, Japan is the absolute best toilets on the planet. That may be a strange thing to lead with, but I think it really accentuates Japan's attention to detail. I dearly, dearly, dearly miss my heated toilet seat every day of the year, especially in the winter. But you can use that remote control on the side there to do all manner of things with the toilet I won't spoil the adventure. You'll have to go to Japan and see it for yourself. A couple other things on this slide I like to highlight. You see the folks bowing there in front of the bullet train. That is the cleaning crew who is bowing to the passengers coming on the train, showing gratitude for them using the service. I think that really accentuates the level of service that you receive in Japan across all aspects of the service spectrum. And just one more kind of little thing, you can see that open taxi door. The taxi doors open on their own. It doesn't require someone to open it for you, but it just, gives you that extra little bit of niceness, as the customer using that service while you're in, in and around the streets trying to get around the cities. Speaking of cities, of course, Japan is full of amazing cities. It's about 70% mountains, so the rest of that 30% of arable land is packed with buildings and people and development. But Tokyo itself has 35 million people, but you wouldn't know it because everything is so orderly and on time and clean, I would say. So, you can stay there for weeks and never get bored and never feel kind of overwhelmed. There's always opportunities for quiet repose in the gardens kind of scattered through the city and that kind of thing. I always like to put in a plug too for Osaka. A lot of folks don't think about it when they're going to Japan for the first time, but it is Japan's kitchen. So it's an excellent stop for street food tours and people watching, nightlife, that kind of thing, when we can all return to it, of course. And opposite to that, which you saw in the intro video as well, is those vast, breathtaking landscapes in the 70% mountainous parts of Japan that are absolutely excellent for hiking. I'm a big hiker in Colorado, of course. It's kind of stereotype, it's typical, but I love it. And I've done a ton in Japan as well, including Mount Fuji, in case you were curious. But you can go anywhere, you can get, nice relaxation, enjoy hot springs and that sort of thing, as well as any number of other outdoor activities. Kind of one of the other major draws to Japan is, of course, the food culture. This really cannot be overstated enough. Japan has more Michelin-starred restaurants than any other country, and Tokyo has more than any other city. So Japan really takes the cuisine of the world, studies it fastidiously for decades, and makes it their own, improves upon it, and fuses it with their own kind of traditional cooking methods and that kind of thing. So another point is that you're not going to spend an arm and a leg for every meal in Japan. One, there is no tipping, so the price that is listed is the price you pay. You don't have to calculate percentages on top of that or anything. And if you try to tip, they will chase you down the street and give you back your money. So back to the point on cost, everyone takes extreme care in everything they do in Japan, and it's a very strong point of pride. And so whether you're paying $5 for, a simple bowl of noodles and broth, with mountain vegetables or something like that, or $500 for, a 3-star Michelin sushi omakase experience like you can see on the screen there, you're going to have a wonderful meal of excellent quality that is absolutely delicious. And one thing that folks don't often think about or correlate with Japan is its wildlife. Of course, I'm sure you see the Japanese macaque, the snow monkey there, who's holding the cell phone. Those guys are a real treat to go see. And of course, yes, if you drop something, they will pick it up. They are primates. So watch your possessions. But yeah, that's a really cool experience. You have an opportunity to see tame deer wandering the town of the old capital of Nara, or the island of Miyajima, which is down near Hiroshima. The guy in the lower left there, he is a flying squirrel, and we can, you can go see them in the Japan Alps and twilight tours. I don't know if there are any birders out there, but the North Island of Hokkaido is also excellent for seeing large birds. You can see the red-crested crane there, the red-crowned crane. Those are the ones that do the kind of intricate mating dances. If you are curious, check it out on YouTube. Likewise, the guy in the lower left, which may be kind of blocked by our videos, is a stellar sea eagle, the largest eagle on the planet. And on YouTube, you can see them catching fish in the ice flows. But it certainly doesn't, replace going to see them in person in January, February kind of time frame. And kind of lastly here, I like to close out on the thing that everybody remembers the most about Japan, and that's the interactions with people that you have while you're in the country. I mentioned the high level of service, but yeah, I can't overstate the how respectful everyone is. When you're in the convenience store, you get handed your change with a bow, and everyone is willing to take time out of their days to help you if you look like you're lost or look like you need something. It's just an unbelievable feeling. You kind of feel like a rock star while you're in the country, and you sort of get addicted to it, and that's why folks go back to Japan again and again once you've caught the bug. So with that kind of framework, I'm going to just take you through kind of an introductory itinerary in Japan. To give you a real feel, a real intimate feel of what your time in Japan could be like, given about 9 days or so. So this is a standard route through the country that we call the Golden Route, or it is called by the Golden Route. Japanese government refers to it as such as well. But essentially on this trip, you would be starting in Tokyo, as most do. That's where, kind of round trip flights will typically arrive in country. You then go to the Mount Fuji area in a place called Hakone, and then you finish out in Kyoto at the end of the trip. Now, of course, you can do more than this, or you can change it up and add in extra destinations in the middle, but we'll just kind of stick with what's the kind of simplest here tonight to illustrate how awesome Japan is. So here we go. Day one, you arrive. Most folks are going to be hitting the Tokyo area around kind of afternoon, early evening when you're arriving from the US. I don't know if I have anybody here from outside the US, but obviously international red-eye flights can arrive anytime, but this is when the majority of folks from the US, North America, will arrive. And once you come, you have a couple options on getting from the airports into the city. Now, Tokyo has 2 ports of entry, Narita Airport and Haneda Airport. And, kind of depending on what your preferences are, you can get into the city in different ways. You can take the train into the city, or you can take a private car, or you can take a shared shuttle. There's a lot of different options based on what you're comfortable with and kind of what your budget is. I love this picture of this guy with the private car here. He just like such a stern figure. And I find that's kind of a lot of the case in Japan. People will look very serious oftentimes going about their daily business, but are absolutely sweet, kind of on the inside. And like I said, we'll drop anything to help you out if you need it. And then you're going to check into your hotel. Here you can see your traditional capsule style, cubbies that you're going to tuck into on your first night. I'm only kidding. This is not the hotel you're going to stay in. Japan has a full range of Western properties, with very comfortable beds and welcoming environments. You can do capsule hotels if you like, but we definitely don't recommend it for arrival or for multiple nights or for most people. But the hotel pictured here is called the Park Hotel, and it's on the eastern side of Tokyo, and it's pretty unique in that one whole floor of the hotel they basically had artists and residents come into the rooms and paint murals on all of the walls of those rooms. You know, they didn't commission specific things. They just, you know, let the artist go to town. So they're all very unique and very different. And it's a really cool option at the kind of 4-star level if you're, you know, for your first stay in Tokyo. And then after you've checked into your hotel, kind of dropped your things, you're kind of on your own to explore Tokyo, you know, get lost, have that lost in translation experience if you want, or, you know, a lot of folks are tired too, and you just kind of, you know, grab a quick bite to eat and go to sleep. But, you know, it's certainly within the realm of possibility, you know, and fun to kind of get out in the evening and just see a bit of Tokyo to know how much you don't know. And here's one of the options. You might want to go after your flight to Meiji Shrine, which is, it actually recently hit its 100th year anniversary. But it is a giant kind of Shangri-La in the center of Tokyo. You know, green trees, wide paths, no kind of concrete buildings, that kind of thing. But really, really cool place to go. And if you are in Japan on a Sunday or in Tokyo on a Sunday, you can often see traditional weddings at this shrine as well. Another cool place right nearby is called Harajuku. This is a youth mecca for the city. You can see folks in really unique attire, or you can go to the nearby Yoyogi Park, where you have the rockabillys that dance outside the entrance. People bring their dogs and their pets and their juggling equipment and stuff. Really interesting place to see characters in the city. And then, of course, I'm going to highlight food a bunch in this along this trip. So I'm sorry if you have not eaten yet. You will definitely be hungry after this presentation. But you can see pictured here a couple of highly recommended dishes. The one on the left you could probably guess is ramen. You know, and if you've had ramen here, it really does not do it justice. It is a true art form in Japan. I dearly miss it, and it's one of the things I seek out actively to try and find something that replicates my experience in Japan while I'm in the US. On the right-hand side there, you can see what's called okonomiyaki, and that is it's kind of dubbed a savory pancake, but it doesn't really do it for me. I just like to describe what it is. It's basically like, you know, a wheat batter base with egg in it that you also add into it, you know, kind of like meats and vegetables, and then you top it with kind of a savory sauce and bonito, the fish flakes and that kind of thing that dance because the heat of the steam coming off of it. But at any rate, this is a real crowd pleaser for you know, folks who've never had it before. They are delicious. They taste nothing like pancakes, and it's just really fun because you get to do it there in front of yourself. So it's kind of part of the experience as well. And with that, you know, the sun sets on the Tokyo skyline. It is beautiful. You know, a lot of the properties that you can stay at in the city itself are very high up in the towers around, so you have the opportunity to kind of absorb that from your hotel room while you're staying. Cool. So we're entering into day 2. Wow, it's just blown by. So this is going to be your first full day in the city. And here's where I definitely recommend you have kind of a private guide take you and your group or anyone with you around the city. And this is your introduction to the transportation network, your chance to kind of get questions answered, help you get your bearings, you know, learn a few things about the different districts or neighborhoods that you're seeing, and just, you know, show you around smoothly while you're getting over jet lag. Can't recommend it highly enough. Especially learning the transit system, because the Tokyo subways are kind of like a giant ball of yarn if you're looking at it for the first time. But after you've done it for a day or so, it does become very intuitive and takes you everywhere that you'd be interested to go in the city. You know, unlike the US, Japan is definitely kind of train centric, and everything has been built up around the stations. And so I really do mean it when I say, you know, the things that you're going to want to see are going to be near a station almost, you know, 100% of the time. So one of the things you might do on this day, you know, I mentioned quiet repose because, you know, if you went out the night before to Shinjuku or something like that and you saw the neon lights and all the like scramble intersections and all the people, the next morning you might just want to kind of like take a breath. So Hamarikyu Gardens is a great place to do that. This was actually a traditional hunting ground for the imperial family that they then donated to the city, and is open to the public now. One of the cool things you can do here is you can sample traditional matcha tea. I don't know if you've had the true whisked version of matcha tea. I mean, they put matcha powder in all kinds of stuff now, in the US as well. But here you can, experience what that actual tea tastes like in its traditional form. As well as, you can meditate there in the tea house if you like, and that sort of thing before moving on. Right from there, you can actually take a water bus up to one of the traditional districts of Tokyo called Asakusa. This is where the largest temple in the city is. You can see it pictured there with the kind of streets with a lot of people walking through. It's completely empty now, of course, which is very strange and eerie. But soon enough, it'll all get back there. And we'll be excited to get back and enjoy it with the rest of everyone else. But, this is a great chance to kind of like see some of the traditional, cleansing with smoke, you can buy fortunes there, traditional kind of like sort of horoscope type things where you shake a bottle and, you get a little stick that pops out and you get a fortune. All kinds of cool little things. Nearby is also the tallest tower in Japan, Tokyo Skytree. You can see it pictured there with Mount Fuji in the background. It is pretty cool. It definitely gives you the best bird eye view of the city. You may be curious about how it compares to Tokyo Tower. They're very different. I would say Skytree is simpler to get to. Tokyo Tower is in the center of the city, and it's kind of like a maze to get there. But they're definitely well worth it, depending on what you're looking for. If you're a little bit more nervous with heights, I'd probably say go Tokyo Tower over Skytree, because Skytree is really, really, really tall. So it might freak you out. But, both really, really cool options. So kind of hitting back on the food again, you can see that little alleyway there. There are loads of alleys like this in Tokyo, kind of sprinkled throughout. This is an example of what you might see in Shinjuku, and that's kind of more of the, nightlife district in Tokyo. But these are all over, and you can see the little flags that hang outside and the little lanterns that hang outside the establishments, which basically, are there to invite customers in to eat their little special foods. Oftentimes these places only have 6 or 8 seats. So really cool, intimate experience that you can get while you're exploring the city. Pictured on the right there is kind of traditional skewered grilled chicken. And then you might like to go out for a drink, in non-COVID times, of course. It's a really cool time to meet people in Japan. It's normally people are very reserved. People are nervous about speaking English. But once, they've had a few beers, had a few drinks, they definitely want to practice English and meet you and get to know you and learn about where you're from, and of course introduce Japan to you and have you leave with a good impression. Everyone is very, very eager to make sure that you love Japan. Cool. So moving on to day 3, not sure if you like fish, or if you do, you definitely need to go and have some of the freshest catch. Tsukiji Fish Market is a real famous place in Tokyo. They've moved the actual auctions, if you've heard of those, to a different location, which is kind of more sterile now. But you can still go and have breakfast at the former fish market. So like I said, get the freshest catch. And this is the best fish you'll ever put in your mouth. I'll leave it there. And here you have a chance to get outside the city too, if you want. There's a lot of great optional day trips. Pictured here is the former capital of Kamakura. Japan had a number of former capitals. This is the one closest to Tokyo. It wasn't a capital for very long, only around 100 years. But it's a cute seaside town. It's home to one of the most famous outdoor Buddhas in Japan. And it's really fun to walk around, really atmospheric. Another option is a city to the north of Tokyo called Nikko, and this is the burial ground, which is kind of morbid, of arguably the most famous character in Japanese history. I say character, he was a historic person. Tokugawa Ieyasu, he was the person who is credited with unifying Japan, which is interesting in that he basically defeated everyone. So he got to write history. And so he was the one that kind of made, after the imperial reign, the one shogun that was able to get everybody to kneel to him. But this is a gorgeous place in a national park, like a hillside among cedar trees, full of just ornate shrines and temples. Very, very beautiful all year round. And now we're going to move out of Tokyo on our way. You're going to get to ride the bullet train. So, if you remember where we're going from the beginning of the presentation, we're hitting up an area near Mount Fuji called Hakone. Here's an example of a traditional Japanese inn there called ryokan. And we always recommend folks try these, for at least 2 nights on their trips to Japan, because it is part of the cultural experience and you can't replicate it anywhere else in the world. The reason why we kind of stick to 2 nights, or we recommend 2 nights, is definitely because it is very different from what you might be used to. You're usually sleeping on futon floor bedding, and you're going to be eating lavish kaiseki meals, which is lots of tiny different Japanese, cuisines that are served to you oftentimes in your room, and can be overwhelming if you stay for a lot of nights, but it is very cool to try. Oftentimes too, these are attached to hot springs, so you might like to have an attached hot spring bath in your room. You might like to try one of the kind of, I say public, but public baths, which is basically a bath for all guests to use. They are gender separated, of course, but they're much larger and more elaborate than what can be attached to your room. So also a very cool experience, and also something I miss a lot about Japan. I studied abroad there for a year, and my dorm room did not have a bathroom in the dorm or in my room. And so I had to go to a public bath for a year. And I actually had this strange experience where my parents came to visit me over Christmas break, and we were staying in a hotel in Tokyo. And it was the first time in 4 months that I was alone in the shower, and I felt extreme loneliness. Very strange. But yeah, these sorts of things happen, right? Cool. So your next day, your full day in Hakone, you definitely need to check out the open air art museum. This is kind of exactly what it sounds like. They have large sculptures outside. It's great for, kids and families. Things are more interactive. You can stand on the exhibits. You can take pictures with them. Really fun. And if it's really rainy and gross outside, they also have an indoor Picasso exhibit. Why Hakone? I don't know. But there's a lot of times like that in Japan where you just ask, why is this here? And then you stop asking questions after a while and just enjoy it. Cool. So speaking of that kaiseki meal at your ryokan, this is kind of what it looks like. Everybody's got 15 different plates of, locally sourced seasonal ingredients, kind of specialties of that ryokan itself. They all differentiate themselves based on their cuisine. And so it is part of, their differentiating factor and their pride. You won't find a variety like this anywhere else in Japan, for sure. And there's just a quick shot of those futon floor beds, in case you've never slept in one. I slept on one for 2 years. I think they're great. I would sleep on one again if I had it, and if it kind of like fit into my room here in my house. But another time, perhaps. Cool. So here's another awesome sightseeing option in Hakone. You can see active volcanic activity. You can see those black eggs, which look completely unappetizing, but they are not that bad. They're called 7-year eggs. So basically, if you eat one, it's reported that you can increase your lifespan by 7 years. By no means do you have to eat these, but it is really cool to kind of do the sightseeing loop in Hakone, get a glimpse of Mount Fuji if it's a clear day, see the volcanic activity, and also ride the pirate boat, because why not? Back to that question of why is this here? Why not? So at any rate, this is Lake Ashi on kind of the far end of Hakone, and it's kind of a kitschy thing, but it is fun, and it does offer you some nice views of Mount Fuji, like I said, on a clear day. Well, there you go. There's a couple happy people with Mount Fuji in the background. Awesome. So now that you've spent your time in front of or near Japan's most sacred mountain, you're going to be moving on by bullet train again to Kyoto. And so one of the coolest things about Kyoto, strangely, for me, is the train station itself. This is a piece of architecture, it's pictured there on the left, that I think is just really cool. It also has 11 stories of escalator in a row. And it has one whole floor dedicated to ramen from all around Japan. So you can basically just go into that floor and decide whether you want to have ramen from the southern island of Kyushu, with the northern island of Hokkaido, or something anywhere in between. It's kind of like a playground for ramen lovers. Anyway, there's also a department store there and loads of other things and places to eat. But one thing I like to point out about Kyoto is that unexpectedly, it is a big city. It has a population of several million people. And the kind of cultural sites and shrines and temples and things are dotted around the outskirts, where you can kind of see that it's surrounded in those low mountains. Most of those things are nestled up and around the outskirts, and the kind of business happens more in the center of town. And I'm going to highlight another kind of unique accommodation type here that we think is really cool, and I personally think is really cool, and that's called machiya. Now these are going to be kind of in town, traditional style townhomes. So it's a little bit like a private villa, like in the middle of town. And these aren't really serviced, so you don't have concierge or anything like that. But they're really cool options for families or groups of people, groups of friends, that sort of thing, who like to kind of do their own thing. So interior wise, they're going to be traditional materials. It's just you in the townhouse, and you get that private feel, and you also get to kind of feel like you're part of the town, which is really, really fun. So after you've arrived, I always recommend, start out on the main drag, go 2 blocks to the left. Like you can find all kinds of small gems where no other people are. Kyoto is extremely popular, and can get extremely crowded during popular times of year, like cherry blossom, or New Year's, or the August festival season, or during fall leaves in November. But there are so many nooks and crannies in the cities, and tiny tucked away gardens and things like that, that you can kind of have a private experience, just by wandering off the beaten path a little bit. Likewise, with Tokyo, or likewise in Kyoto, we always recommend having a guide kind of your first day to help you, kind of smoothly navigate the transit network, because there's kind of a crisscross of subways, but there's also buses that get you around kind of the rest of the way, or if you prefer, there are, of course, fleets of taxis. Or you can always get a private car as well to take you around the city, too. And I would say Kyoto is more convenient to have a vehicle, a private car, or do taxis, rather than public transit. Whereas in Tokyo, you can get everywhere you want to go, once again, by public transit. But, obviously, Kyoto is going to be a really historic and cultural center of Japan. And so it's really nice to have somebody with you to help you deepen your understanding and experience with everything Kyoto has to offer. So you kind of know the significance of what you're seeing, not just, wow, that's beautiful. So, some kind of points to highlight. Of course, most folks have seen King Kakuji, the Gold Pavilion. This has become increasingly crowded over the years, but, there are just as cool things to see all across the city. One of my favorites is actually nearby. It's Ryokan, one of the most famous rock gardens in Japan. You have kind of an observation deck here where you can just sit and observe, meditate if you like, on the rock formations. And this is famous, but there's also loads of famous and non-famous moss temples and other kinds of rock gardens and that kind of thing you can see all over the city. Another really cool place is on the west side of the city. It's called Arashiyama, and you can see the famous bamboo grove here. You can also take a ride in a traditional rickshaw. You can observe, there's kind of like a quaint river corridor that goes through that's really nice to hang out at. And of course, excellent restaurants on the side of the city as well. And yes, you can definitely meet a geisha or maiko who's a geisha in training to kind of learn about her lifestyle and the rigorous training that they have to undergo in all sorts of art forms and entertainment, kind of parlor tricks and things like that. Really fun experience. I highly, highly recommend it, for your time in Japan. It's really irreplicable. Also, I don't know if any of you have seen this movie, Memoirs of a Geisha. Take it how you will, but that definitely popularized Fushimi Inari Shrine, really solidified it in folks' brains. This is an excellent place to go. There's a main shrine at the base of it, and then the torii gates, those orange, gates that are all in line, those go all the way up the mountain. So you can hike all the way to the top, and it takes, a half hour, depending on how leisurely you want to do it. And then they actually go down the backside of it too. So nobody is back there. You can go walk all the way down the backside of the mountain and do a nice loop. And you would be the only one there for most of the time on that backside. So it's really cool. It's really great, especially if you're kind of outside the main hours of the day, kind of before 9 a.m. or after 5 p.m. Super, super serene experience. I'm going to do another quick highlight of possible day trips from Kyoto, because Kyoto is a really cool base of operations. So you can extend your stay, as long as you like. And you can also see a lot of cool other cities and towns around it. Nara is one of the other former capitals. You can see here Todaiji, which is the largest wooden structure in Japan, if not the world. Housed inside that is another one of Japan's most famous Buddha statues. Seated Buddha statues, and of course, home to the tame deer of Nara, which you can feed deer snacks. You can buy the snacks and feed them to the deer there. And they're supposed to bow to thank you for the snack, but they're spoiled. Let's be honest. Oh man, another plug for Osaka. Cool place to see sumo. Great, nightlife. Another kind of neon district. They have a town or a section called America Town with lots of shopping and stuff. In case you're curious, what Osaka's perception of what America might be. Another really neat option from Kyoto, it's about 40 minutes from town, is Himeji. And this is a city with Japan's largest preserved castle. And so these guys are going to be all wooden construction. And it was actually recently renovated. And what I mean by renovated is they take it apart piece by piece. They replace anything that's, kind of damaged or etc. And then they put it back together. It took 5 years. But this place is awesome. They have all the battlements still there, and you can take, tours that go through, and you can see all of the kind of technologies that they used to repel invaders. And I guess it's famous for never being invaded. It was never overtaken. And then continuing on with your trip, you have endless options. I'll just highlight a couple here. Hiroshima, Miyajima, clearly famous and important historically for its connection with World War II. Seeing the atom bomb dome, Peace Memorial and Museum are an emotional experience for everyone and important, I would say, for especially Americans going to kind of experience that based on our connection with Japan. You can also visit the nearby island of Miyajima, another place you can catch those tame deer. Watch out though, because like one time my wife and I were there, and she had an ice cream in her hand, and we're like, "Oh, look, a deer! It's cute!" And it just jumped up and put its paws on her shoulders and was trying to eat the ice cream out of her hand. It was like, "Oh my goodness!" Yeah. So they won't hurt you, but they will surprise you sometimes. Couple of cool places that I like to highlight. Kanazawa. I lived about half an hour from there in Fukui last time I was living in Japan. Home to one of Japan's top 3 gardens, excellent fish market, and a really killer 21st century art museum, which is strange in that location, but I can't complain. It's excellent. Takayama is a really cool place in the center of the Japan Alps that's famous for these A-frame farmhouses with thatched roofs. And it's also famous for its A-grade Wagyu Japanese beef, as well as sake production. So really cool, kind of more remote, more rural, mountainous area to go see. That's a corridor in its traditional shopping district. You can actually see those kind of dark wooden slats and stuff. They're like that because they were originally taxed. Hinoki is the type of wood that was used, and it was taxed by the shogunate. And so they basically pre-burned them to zero out their value so they didn't have to pay tax on them. Kind of an interesting workaround for a couple hundred years ago. Mount Koya is kind of an active practicing spot for Buddhism. And you can go and see kind of traditional Buddhist training and morning rituals, and the largest graveyard in Japan, if you're interested in that sort of thing. Also nearby in Wakayama Prefecture, you can do one of the traditional pilgrimage routes called the Kumano Kodo. You can see that kind of pictured there, and there were a lot of shots from it in that video at the beginning of the presentation as well. And Nachi Shrine, with Japan's largest or tallest waterfall, is along that pilgrimage route as well. All right, where do you want to go? Cool, well, that's what I've got for our intro to Japan. I hope you enjoyed and learned a few things. I'll go ahead and click out of my sharing here, and we'll go into questions.
Well, thank you very much for that, John. It was pretty insightful. A lot of little off the beaten path kind of things that you mentioned.
Sure.
If you do have questions, please feel free to post them in the chat. I do have a couple that came in.
Cool, yeah.
When you're talking about the Kyoto station, and especially like with the whole floor that's dedicated to ramen and the shopping, is it open to the public, or do you have to have a train ticket to get in?
Well, I mean, the great thing is that you arrive into the station via train, and that's how you're going to be getting to Kyoto. So yeah, you just walk right into the station, and it's all there for you to enjoy.
So if you wanted to go back, though, let's say that, I mean,
definitely.
I know there's plenty of places to eat, but if something really caught your eye and you can only try
it's all
one
outside the gates. Yeah, you don't have to be behind the gates in where the train tracks are to access any of that. Yeah, it's I've spent a lot of time on that station. It's really fun. Yeah.
Great.
Cool. Another person asked, how long does it take to become a geisha?
Great question. Oh my gosh, I wish I knew the answer right off the bat. I would say at least 4 years. So basically they attract, young women. Typically it's something that's discussed with their families, but it is a lifestyle choice. They do that like instead of high school. But it's the kind of thing where they literally have to train all day long, and they have to learn traditional shamisen. That's the Japanese stringed instrument, and koto, which is a floor stringed instrument. As well as kind of like traditional drumming and singing, and as well as kind of verbal interplay and how to have a good conversation and be a good listener, and and they do this. It's a very rigorous. Most quit, because it is very, very hard and rigorous. At one point when you've passed your trainings and can kind of like graduate into like formal entertaining, people do it because they want to have that kind of prestige, right? It is very honorable, to have that. Designation of being a geisha, because very few are able to do it. So yeah, it's a really interesting lifestyle, and it's certainly not something we have an option to do here. Anything like that, yeah.
Okay, so the geisha is a lifestyle choice. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
What about skiing in Japan?
Excellent question. So yeah, I mean, talk a little bit about winter. Winter is one of my absolute favorite times to go to Japan because it's low season. So you get very good values on things, and food is excellent. And I know, once again, stereotypically Coloradan here, right? I love skiing and snowboarding, and Japan has a number of world-class ski resorts. So if any of you saw or remember the 1998 Olympics, that was hosted in Nagano Prefecture, which still has world-class skiing. But what's been coming up on the radar recently is the North Island of Hokkaido has a resort called Niseko, and it has loads of like excellent accommodations and places to eat, and multiple slopes and multiple ski resorts that you can kind of choose and go between depending on where the snow is best. So I also like to joke, it's, if you want, someone will ask me, where is the best English in Japan? And I say it's in Niseko, because that's where a lot of like expat Aussies and Kiwis went to kind of reside in the winters, the snowbirds from down south. And so you can get around very, very easily in that city, with no, like, most folks will understand English, which is as opposed to other major cities in Japan where that is not necessarily the case.
Okay. Candace, did you have any questions?
I did. In regards to coming in to see the cherry blossoms,
Yeah.
What type of lead time do you recommend for folks? Because I know, you can't gauge Mother Nature. However, we all know it's in that springtime area. So.
Yeah. So just as a quick reference, I recommend having your trip booked in before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
As kind of like a drop dead date. If you got together with family and, over Thanksgiving and you said, like, where are we going to go next year for the family? Oh my gosh, let's go to Japan and cherry blossom. If you start to plan your trip after that, you're, at least in the last few years, due to the popularity of, that time frame, your choices of accommodation and that sort of thing and activities will start to get pretty limited pretty fast.
Sure.
And you'll kind of just be left with what's left,
sure.
For lack of a more eloquent phrase. So yeah, it's ideally you'd want to have it booked in at least 6 months in advance. Kind of, if you want the cream of the crop choice, 8 months in advance is what I'd recommend. And
we had talked before about some of my clients who are extreme foodies, and obviously you mentioned at the earlier part of the presentation about all of the fantastic Michelin star type places to eat. But you said there's a lot of fantastic just street food stuff that they can do as well.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And it depends on the time of year, right? So any time of year when you have festivals, anywhere in the country, those come with what are called yatai, which are just kind of like stand or stall, street food. And so, you have those options various times of the year. Osaka is very accessible for street food. When you're there along the canal corridor, there are a number of, restaurants through Dotonbori and the other kind of districts right there that you can just walk up to and try, octopus balls, which it sounds gross, but they're delicious, and other kind of skewered foods and like delicious fried foods on a stick and that kind of stuff, or seafoods, if people are into, oysters and other things from the sea that you can kind of walk up and try. So yeah,
it's not just a place for seafood, because if you have any kind of allergies, there's also all different kinds of cuisine that you can get, because you had mentioned to us before, and I had shared with a few of my clients who maybe have an allergy to seafood or something. I'm like, there's so many different types of cuisine that are available in Japan that you're going to have your pick.
That's right. Absolutely. One thing I like to say, or I like to let people know, is that you should definitely try McDonald's while you're in Japan, which is a strange thing to recommend, right? But, like I said, everybody takes extreme care with all food that's produced across the whole spectrum in Japan. And McDonald's in Japan is the absolute best McDonald's I've ever had. They also have seasonal like a seasonal menu where they'll have like a themed burger, or one time, sorry to go back to seafood, I really like fish and stuff, but yeah, the one time they had it was a shrimp karaoke burger, which is basically like shrimp that are baked into a potato kind of fried, pancake is not the right word, I don't know what these are in English, but anyway, yeah, put that on burger buns and with like a really nice seasonal sauce. You would never expect to see that at a McDonald's, right?
Right.
But really unique, really interesting, and very high quality for being fast food. That said, Japan is an excellent place to find vegetarian cuisine. Uh, you can stay overnight at a traditional, they're called shukubo, which is a monk's residence. And you can sample, it's called shojin ryori, which is basically vegetarian monk food, essentially, where you can kind of experience the full breadth of what that's capable of, or what the options are. And I've done this, it's great. I think it's delicious. And, loads of clients are interested in trying this. And you don't have to stay overnight at a temple lodging. You can also go to a restaurant that specializes in that. And there are other kinds of resources coming out, like vegan guides to Japan. It's traditionally, Japanese folks just eat everything. And so kind of dietary restrictions or choices, that sort of thing, are kind of new to Japan. So, they're slowly kind of catching up, and more and more options are coming up. It does kind of beg the question, why are there so many more incidents of allergies here than there are in Japan? I don't know.
Sure.
But
one of the last questions I want to just have you touch on, because one of the folks that threw a Q&A in there asked about how cold it gets in Japan and the climate. And I know, obviously from sending people there, I haven't been myself yet, and it's on my bucket list for next year or the year after, is that they have pretty much all the seasons from what I understand. But can you just touch on the different different seasons and the cold and hot and that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. So Japan is a temperate rainforest. And so what that means is that you have 4 distinct seasons, spring, summer, winter, fall, and in the same order that we have them, for about 3 months each. So it's very even, kind of even keel. I like to liken Japan seasons to Virginia, which is where I grew up, where, it is hot and humid in the summer. Fall is beautiful and has, kind of the changing leaves and, kind of mild temperatures. Winter is cold, but typically not below freezing in the main latitudes. You do get snow at higher elevation, which is Nagano Prefecture, or the north of Japan, or the North Island of Hokkaido. So, it can get cold in parts.
But it's not a tundra, because it's an island.
Yeah, no, it's, and being that it is a rainforest, due to the level of rainfall throughout the whole year, not every month of the year, but it's concentrated in summer, June and July. But, you do get lots of precipitation throughout the year, and loads of snow gets dumped in northern Japan over the winter.
Hence the skiing is great.
Hence the skiing is excellent. Yeah, you get the champagne powder in Hokkaido, just like we do in Colorado. So yeah, and then of course spring again is very mild temperatures. And I guess to peg it, 60s, 70s is kind of where it would be. But it does rain, frequently throughout the spring as well. It's, I guess, yeah, that's the overview of the seasons. Japan.
Perfect to explain, because like you said, I know it gets all 4 seasons similar to parts of the United States, but it's not as severe like Michigan, for example.
No, the snow, like in Tokyo and Kyoto especially, snow does not accumulate. Tokyo actually goes several years without any snow. And then it's always a big spectacle when it does, kind of dust a little bit on the streets, like, snow, it's a big deal. But Kyoto it probably snows a couple times a year, light dusting. But yeah, once you get into the Japan Alps in northern Japan, that's when you actually get the snow. And then, of course, yeah, summer is rainy season, and summer and fall is when most people go.
Sure.
One last question. You had a big event in Japan that was supposed to happen this year that got moved to next year.
We did? What? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Yes,
so
it did.
For the Summer Olympics, are there tickets still available? Can people still get over there?
So
is now the best time to book for that if that's what they're interested in?
Great question. So the place where you get tickets is a company called CoSport. They're the official vendor. And if you're curious, go sign up for their newsletter on their website. They are the ones you can buy tickets through. They've been kind of metering the ticket releases because, everything was kind of settled, obviously, before they had to move it. And then I'd say about 30% of folks, gave up their tickets or decided not to go or decided not to rebook, that kind of thing. And so that did open up slots for people to go in 2021. So definitely check that space for when tickets become available and any opportunities to purchase tickets based on what you're interested in. In the past year, those have been released via lottery. They've been released via like waiting like online waiting system. It's been interesting to kind of watch that. But yeah, kind of like if it's a dream, definitely just be diligent, stick with it, and kind of be on top of it so that you can make sure you get tickets.
It's like getting a seat in a Michelin star restaurant. I'm familiar. As a travel advisor, I do that for my client. It's a lot of time. You have to be patient.
That's right. Yep. I mean, there's a lot of people all over the world that want it, right? So, it's trying to coordinate an international system that through various vendors, and it's complicated, but in the end, people will all get over there and go and have an awesome time.
Right.
And that's what we want for them.
Right. And thank you so much, John.
You're very welcome.
Brought us the best of Japan, and we're all excited to go.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah,
we just need all the borders to open so we can get over there.
That's right.
For those of you that are still on the line with us, thank you so much for being with us this evening. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be sending out a copy of the recording for you. So if you missed any part of it, you can go back and check it out. Or if you have any questions, feel free to contact one of us as well. I did post our contact for where you can find us in the chat, and you can copy that or save it, I should say. If you go into the chat box down at the bottom right corner, you'll see 3 dots, and when you hover over it, it'll say more. Click on it, click on Save Chat, and I'll put it right into a Zoom file on your computer. I hope you can join us next week when we go to Tanzania with Jennifer Reynolds. Some of you have seen her with us before when she took us to Antarctica and to Peru and the Galapagos Islands.
Right. She's been a fan favorite.
She really has been. And so again, you can register for that either through Eventbrite, through Meetup, or through our Take a Virtual Vacation Facebook group. John, thanks again for joining us, and I hope everybody has a fantastic evening and rest of your week.
Good night.
Take care.
Contact information, I'll post that again really quick in the chat for you. Give me just 1 second on that. And there you go. That has our email addresses, but then further up in the chat, you should be able to see with where you can find us, and that would include our the links for Meetup as well as the Take a Virtual Vacation page. Any other quick questions before we end for the evening? Nope. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody, and we hope to see you next week. Bye, John.
Bye.